Hey everybody, what's up? This is ZXRyuu, and today I decided to do another tutorial video. So today we're going to do just a quick overview of the things that I use for audio setup. We'll look at my soundboard and compressor and switchbox and just some other things that I use for audio. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing to talk about here is just my basic soundboard and microphone preamp, and also my video game preamp as well. So on the left we have a what is this? This is a Behringer micro amp HA400. It's a 1 input, 4 output headphone amplifier. And I use it for just when, like, CCN Fire, Tommy 12, and I, or just whomever, whenever we play games, we all just plug into this headphone preamp. That way we can all hear the game at once. If you want, like, the audio to be broken out for multiple games and multiple people so that they can hear their own stream or this kind of thing, that requires a little bit of a different setup. So I might do like a separate video on that at some point in the future, but just for right now, the way we have stuff set up is we run all the game audio eventually comes into this headphone preamp. So that's kind of where things stand with that. And then over to the right, I have my Behringer Xenyx 1202 soundboard. So right now I have the gain kind of turned up to, I have the gain kind of turned up a little ways. Since my volume range is pretty dynamic, I have my gain set a little bit lower than everybody else's. And then I have the level turned all the way up. So the level down at the bottom is like moving the slider up and down. And some of these settings will make a little bit more sense as we're talking about just different things going on with my compressor and some other stuff. But for right now, the soundboard is set at a master volume level of -6 dB. And then I also have a phone/control room. Right now I'm using the control room setup so that everybody can hear everybody. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move on. So, but anyway, this is a Behringer Xenyx 1202. And then over on the side over here, I have my Sprout preamplifier. This is actually a vinyl amplifier, but I use it to patch all game audio into. So I have it set to analog because I'm using analog audio, and then I just have I have the volume turned all the way down for right now, just so that for demonstration purposes. But anyway, so that's a Sprout vinyl amplifier, and I just bought this because I got a vinyl player at one point, but it turns out that the stop function wasn't working and stuff. So when I got married, Miss Zippity Zap already had a vinyl player, and it didn't require a preamp. So I just ended up putting my preamp in with my game stuff. So I separate out all the audio and video from this box here. These are two monoprice, or this is a monoprice 4 input and 1 output switcher. But also, if we look on the back, it has audio hookups as well. So we have the power on the far right, and then the next one is coax for like coaxial digital. And then to the right or to the left of that, we have an analog, just 3.5 stereo output. And I use that to go from this box into my Sprout box on the input, and then I take the output of that, and that goes into my Extron Crosspoint, so that because the Extron Crosspoint doesn't have any type of like volume adjustment on it, so I use the preamplifier as a way to give volume control back, where I can turn things up and down as necessary. You don't necessarily need to do it that way. You could just run your audio into any of these 1/4 inch, like on your 5/6 channel or whatever, you could run 1/4 inch into that, and then you would have a knob that you could just turn the volume up and down with that. But since I want to have all of my games hooked up all at the same time, and I want all of them to be able to run into the soundboard at any given time, that's why I do it that way. I use the 2-track in on my soundboard to run all of my sound into. After it goes into my Extron, I run it back out through one of the outputs into my soundboard. So that's how that part gets connected. The next thing is I have this Alesis 3630 compressor. It's a really, really basic entry-level compressor, but it works really, really well, I found. So I really like using it because it keeps all of our volume under control, and we don't have any like major issues now that I've been able to put that into our system. So, and again, this isn't going to be like a tutorial of how sound works, except for maybe a couple of things. But anyway, so the way I have mine set up is I have my threshold set at -6 dB, which is the same as the master output volume on my soundboard, because the reason I have it set up this way is because my soundboard doesn't have an insert or an aux connection, because it's just not that fancy of a soundboard. So what I do is I run the compressor as the final piece of equipment in my chain. So that way I can get stereo out of it, because this compressor has 2 channels on it, but they're both mono. At least I haven't found any way to get around that. So if anybody knows anything, they could let me know. But anyway, it has 2 mono channels, so I use this little button in the middle called Stereo Link for channel A and master. So I connect both sides, so you can see both sides are performing equally here where they're both reading my voice right now. I use this as a stereo, so I run the stereo output from my soundboard. So I just use like the main out connection back there. And I run the main output into both inputs on the back of the compressor. So you can't really see it, and behind my compressor is like a giant mass of cables because of everything that's hooked up. But anyway, on the back of the compressor, you have 2 channels. You have channel A and channel B. So I just run the tip input into the left side and the ring input into the right. So I remember ring for right, just to make things easy on myself. So anyway, that way you can have stereo and you have a compressor before everything gets sent to the final mix on OBS. So that's, and OBS is what I'm using to record everything. The thing with OBS though is OBS has a section that's only, I think, I want to say it's like -25 dB or something like that before it goes into the yellow, and then it starts distorting your audio. Like if you're too loud or something, it'll distort it. So the reason why I have these settings set this way is our videos are a little bit quieter, but that's because I have the threshold set before it gets to the yellow on -25 dB. So I kind of just had to play around with settings on that to get that right. But the way I accomplish that is the threshold. So I guess on here you can see some labels. So there's a threshold, a ratio, an attack, and a release, and an output. So I have my threshold set at -6 dB, which is what the master output volume is on my soundboard. And then I have a ratio of 3:1 compression. I am not a sound guy by any stretch of the imagination, so I kind of just looked online at some other videos to see what good vocal compression range is, and they suggested a 3:1 ratio. I have my attack, which is how quickly the compressor kicks in when it goes over that volume level that you've already specified. So I have my attack set at 5 milliseconds because you want it to kick in really fast. And then if there's a lot going on, you want a slow release. So I have 500 milliseconds of release because that's when the compressor goes back to a normal state. And then finally, output is what your final volume output is going to be. So I have my final output set also at minus 6 dB. That way there's not any weird volume discretion when we get really excited or this kind of thing. It all stays at the same level pretty much. So that's what I have. I am using I'm using RMS for my type of compression, and then I'm also using soft knee. And then I also have the compressor enabled, and then I have the bottom it's set to output, so you can see what the volume is for output there. I have it set to soft knee. What that does is the compression kicks in a little bit sooner, but it's a little bit lighter, so it just kind of like smooths over your compression. It's not something that should be used in every case because eventually it just like starts sounding muddy and awful if there's like too much going on. So I just have it set so that it smooths over the audio rather than it being like a really harsh compression when it kicks in. And that's really what soft knee and hard knee is the soft knee kind of slowly eases into compression, and hard knee is like all the compression right now. So that's that. So, and then I guess just for inputs and outputs on my Extron, I have all of my games coming into, or I guess I have the game audio coming in off the FrameMeister on channel 1. On channel 2, I'm trying to remember what's on channel 2 right now. Oh, okay, so this channel 1 is all the RGB audio. Channel 2 is all the S-video audio, and that's coming in from this little Extron distribution amplifier. So I have that stuff all run for S-video because the Extron doesn't have S-video connections natively. It has BNC. So there's BNC to S-video converters, but I don't have any of those. I have channel 3 set to be my, I think channel 3 is set as my, I didn't write any of this down, I just kind of got it all in my head. Channel 3 is all of the game audio coming off of all the HD systems. And then channel 4 is all of the audio coming in off of the control room on the soundboard. So, so that's what I have set. I just have it all kind of one-to-one input-output because it made it a little bit easier to keep track of, I guess. So anyway, so again, channel 1 is RGB audio. Channel 2 is S-video. Channel 3 is HD, so which comes off of the Monoprice system. Sorry, no, the channel 3 comes off of the Sprout compressor. Or Sprout compressor? No, the Sprout preamplifier. And then 4 is all of the audio coming out of the control room. So I can send a certain amount of volume using this control center knob, and that's how loud the volume is that comes into the Extron and then ultimately goes out to my little headphone amplifier here. So that's how that all works. Okay, so again, I have a Behringer microamp HA400 headphone amplifier. It's got 1 input and 4 outputs, so you can just plug any headphone into it that's 1/4 inch. You can also use 3.5, but you have to have a converter of 3.5 to 1/4 inch for it to work. So, and then you can adjust any of these knobs independently of each other. So, you know, if player 2 needs it up a little bit louder than player 1, that's fine. It'll adjust it accordingly. And so again, I have a Behringer Xenyx 1202 soundboard, and I have the volume, or like this knob for volume. I just have it turned all the way up, and it's like the equivalent of moving this knob up and down. I just have it moved up all the way. And then for my gain, I just have each person's gain turned up a little bit differently because each person is louder or quieter. I'm louder, so I have my gain turned up a little bit, or turned down a little bit than everybody else's. So this track 2 is coming off of the Extron Crosspoint. It's coming out of channel 3 on the Extron Crosspoint. So that's where that ends up. And that's after like volume control and stuff. So I've already adjusted the volume when it comes into here, so I don't have to worry about any extra sound when it gets sent out on the main channel. These two connections here are going to control room, and that's running from 1/4 inch to 3.5, but then I've got a 3.5 to RCA converter on the other end of it. So I just use that to connect into the Extron. And then this main out, these are 2 1/4 inch cables on both sides. It's just one cable, but it's got 1/4 inch on both sides, ring and tip. And those go out of the main outputs, and then they go into my compressor channel A and B after linking them to stereo. And then this sprout box over here is a vinyl amplifier, but it has analog, digital, Bluetooth. I mean, it's really nice for what it is. And then you can kind of turn up the volume on this, and that comes into the headphones and stuff after making it through. So I mean, you can see the game audio there. So, but anyway, I can adjust how loud or quiet the game volume is just by turning that knob up and down. And then again, I've got this this Monoprice 4 input 1 output switcher, and it has the 3.5 millimeter audio on the back, and that goes out. That breaks out all the audio for the HD system. So it goes out of here, and then it goes into my preamp. And then from out of my preamp, it goes into channel 3 on my Extron. And then it also goes back out on channel 3 because channel 3 goes out to my 2-track input on here. So that's where I have that going. So it's already been volume adjusted by the time it reaches here, and so then it just goes to the stream without any other issues. So out of my compressor, then I have a 1/4 inch ring tip to 3.5 millimeter stereo, and that goes into the back of my computer for my input for just final audio that's recorded inside of OBS. So again, just like a quick little thing. So I've got all the microphones on the first 4 channels, and then I just adjust the volume accordingly. After adjusting the gain, I just turn the level all the way up, and then I know that it's set right for what my setup is anyway. So, yeah, so I don't know that there's really a whole lot else to mention on that. Just that OBS is kind of picky on how audio works, so you have to make sure that you've got your audio set like to minus 25 dB according to their standards, so that your audio doesn't distort. So, but for me, the way that I got to that was I set everything at about minus 6 dB, and that seemed to work just fine. So, so yeah, there's that. I don't think there's really anything else to mention about all this audio. So anyway, let's cut back. So anyway, that was just a quick tour of what I use for audio. There are simpler setups and things that you can use for getting your audio to your stream and this kind of thing. I just use the 1/4 inch to line in on the back of my computer, or 1/4 inch to 3.5, which then goes into the line in on the back of my computer, I guess is a better way to say that. So, so I just use that instead. But there are plenty of ways to do audio. I mean, you could do webcam audio. You could do just built-in microphone audio. You don't have to use these fancy headsets and a whole soundboard and all this other stuff to get everything running. But I just found it to be pretty streamlined, I guess, to get everything working with what I wanted to do. Just have all my games hooked up, and then I can just route audio and video anywhere I want it with the Extron. So it's kind of nice to have the Extron as a center point because it moves audio and video around pretty well. And then I just use the FrameMeister and the Monoprice 4-in-1 switcher to get the audio broken out from HD into just normal analog that I can use. So anyway, if you guys have any questions about any of this equipment, I know this was kind of just like a quick overview, but if you guys have any questions or any trouble with any of your audio, I guess, leave a message in the comments. I'll try and help you out. I'm not super in tune with audio setup and how all that works, but I can help you out as best I can. So what I did with my setup is I just really had to sit around and tinker with it for quite a while. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Is I just tested it a bunch and finally got a set of settings that worked well. So anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. If you guys want more tutorials, if you guys want any more tutorial videos, be sure to leave a like on this video and any of the others. I've got a whole playlist of just retro game tutorials, so hopefully you guys can go check those out and find something interesting in them. And if you guys have any other questions or other things that you want to see me do for tutorials, just leave a note in the comments and I'll see what I can do for you. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day and we'll catch you again soon. See you later.